Welcome to the podcast. This episode is entitled For the Never Trumpers. This is my pitch to people who can't stand Trump, who think he has destroyed the Republican Party, who just will not vote for him. I was like you in the primaries in 2016. Thought he was an idiot. Thought he turned the primaries into a circus, which he did. Thought there's no way he can win. He's a moron. He says all this stupid stuff. But then I was watching something once, and one of his, talks he gives, whatever you call them. And I was like, this guy's a sincere patriot, though. Like, he's a jerk, and he says the dumbest things. But he actually, cares about the country. And so that went a long way with me. I still didn't want him. I still wanted Rubio instead. But one of the things I've noticed is the debates. Like, if you watch Vance, he won't answer questions. He skirts around them. Like, I was watching a thing today, and somebody asked him, do you think they stole the election in 2020? And he's like, And then he was like, I'll say what they say in the South. Bless your heart, or whatever. Like, it's like a little insult or whatever. And then he talked about the Hunter Biden laptop, but he never really answered the question. And that's the thing with Trump, is he answers the question most of the time. Sometimes you can tell people have gotten to him and said, stop saying this, or say this better. But if you remember politics before Trump, it was so canned. It was so fake. Go watch those debates and watch Rubio and Cruz giving these obviously rehearsed fake answers, poll-tested answers, like they're a packaged product, which they are. And Trump wasn't a packaged product. At least he didn't come across that way. I know he's pretty media savvy, but that's going to be a shame when that goes away, when people are BS artists again. So what I want you to think is 25 years into the future, when you're talking to your grandkids or somebody else's grandkids or your nieces and nephews or just young people, and they talk to you about what it was like when Trump was around, or the election in 2024. And what are you going to tell them? What's going to matter to them? What's going to matter that happened 25 years before? Because what's going to happen in this election is, all elections affect the next 25 years. But this one's going to have some pretty big effects. So that's what I want you to think. Think long term. Let's look how Biden changed things, because people say, they're two sides of the same coin. Trump's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's crazy. Okay. If Trump had been in the last 4 years, let's look at some of the things that wouldn't have happened. So Biden picked two pretty liberal, I don't know, he's only picked one so far, right? Yeah, he's only picked one Supreme Court justice. Think about how much the court matters. Roe versus Wade was around for 50 years. Plessy versus Ferguson was around for 50 years. The Supreme Court said, yeah, you can segregate people based on race, for 50 years before they overturned it. Roe versus Wade said, yeah, it's a fundamental right protected in the Constitution to kill your baby if it inconveniences you. And all the states have to abide by that radical decision for 50 years. Wherever you fall down on that decision, that's a long time to overturn it. We used to argue about it, but the arguments were just academic because the court took that out of our hands. And you can say, well, they took slavery out of our hands. No, they didn't. We amended the Constitution. Lincoln didn't even take slavery out of the states' hands. We amended the Constitution to say the states and the federal government have no say in slavery anymore. We banned it with the Constitution, which is over and above the federal government and the states. We never did that with abortion, because that topic is not as cut and dried as slavery or segregation based on race, which the Supreme Court got rid of, and nobody really wants it around. So nobody's arguing to bring it back. Without Biden, we probably wouldn't have had the Ukraine war, because let's be honest, the Ukraine war happened because we were pushing NATO. Now, if you're like, no, Putin's the devil, okay, go look into it more than just stupid CNN propaganda. Go look into it. If we had just said, okay, Ukraine, be neutral, there would not have been a war. Yeah, maybe Putin would have held on to the Crimea, okay. But there would not have been a war that killed 500,000 Ukrainians and a whole bunch of Russians and destroyed the country of Ukraine. That's Biden's fault, and that's the neocons' fault. Trump would have prevented that, almost for sure. And it's not because, he loves to pal around with dictators. No, he would have just said, okay, Ukraine, be neutral. We don't need to expand NATO. Would have been real simple. Be clear, this whole war is about pushing NATO on Ukraine and Russia saying no. Think back, the very first thing, 10 minutes after he took the oath of office and gave his speech and shuffled on over to the White House, he sat down and signed a paper that said, we're going to ban or dismantle or not give permission anymore to the Keystone Pipeline. The very first thing he did was shut off the promise of future supply of oil coming from Canada. It immediately destroyed 10,000 jobs that were building that pipeline. It immediately caused the futures market to start paying more for future supplies of oil, because now that future supply that was promising to lower the price of oil, now that dried up. So we could have cheaper oil right now. We would have cheaper oil right now if Biden hadn't been in. It's for sure. They can tell you all that stupid, we're producing more oil and natural gas than ever before. Okay, maybe that's true, but we could be producing even more from one of our allies if we had kept that pipeline around. But because of them and their green radicalism, it's the first thing Biden did. Remember all those people who got fired because they wouldn't take the vaccine? Because those tyrants said, oh yeah, they all care about their liberties until the rubber meets the road. They'll give in. We can force them to do it. Those stupid patriots who love their freedom, right? Have you heard that whole thing from Fauci where he basically said that? And then remember Biden telling us our patience is wearing thin, like we're little kids, and he's some kind of dictator. That wouldn't have happened with Trump. Remember how they imported 10 million illegals to suppress wages and to, who knows why they're doing it, get, more Democratic voters, more fake voters in these, I don't know, why did they let 10 million illegals in? Obviously they did it. We all know they did it. Nobody disputes that they did it. That wouldn't have happened under Trump. And you hear, oh, he didn't have the border closed. Yeah, there were still some people coming over. Nothing like now. They just threw the border open and they turned the Border Patrol into a taxi service for people gaming the system, claiming that they're asylees or refugees, and they're not refugees. They're just immigrants. who come from crappy countries who don't want to live in those countries anymore. Why else are they leaving? Because they want to go to a better country. That's not how you define a refugee. And they're gaming the system, and Trump didn't let them game the system. And the Democrats, for, I guess, multiple reasons, and the stupid Republicans who want cheap labor because they don't care about us, are letting them in. And it's ruining the country. Not because those people are of a certain race or whatever, but just people coming in illegally is ruining the country. It ruined California. It's ruining the Southwest. It's ruining the whole country. It's not the worst thing that's happening, but it is a problem. It's ruining schools. It's overburdening them. It's making us into a bilingual country, which will not keep us united. Now, look, this isn't a thing about immigration, but that many people coming in illegally, and we don't know who they are, where they're going, you can't think that's a good thing. So that wouldn't have happened under Trump. He did have the border largely closed down. And given another 4 years, it would have been the same thing. That is not debatable. The only thing you can say is he didn't have it completely closed down. He had it pretty well closed down. Think about all the New Deal crap, or the Green New Deal stuff, pushing electric cars on us, forcing companies like Ford to go all electric, and then nobody buys their cars, their stupid Lightning trucks that couldn't go more than 70 miles towing a camp trailer, right? I mean, how much does a camp trailer weigh? That's not that. Those trucks suck for doing truck things. For just driving around some 15-minute city, okay, I guess they're fine, but that's not why you buy a truck. Pushing windmills where people don't want them. I mean, this Green New Deal thing is a nightmare. It's really ruining the country. And it's not really green because they won't do nuclear. They won't look into anything else other than solar panels and windmills. And most of the solar panels are made in China with slave labor. So all that Green New Deal garbage would not have happened under Trump. All the spending like crazy, causing inflation, ballooning the debt. Yeah, Trump spent a lot, but it was mostly because of COVID. It's true, he's not a budget hawk, but he wouldn't have spent like these people are spending. And that stupid infrastructure bill, 2/3 of it was just giveaways to like unions and stuff. You remember quote, human infrastructure, the dumbest. It's almost as dumb as gender affirming care, right? They are masters at spin and BS. It wasn't for infrastructure. You think $1 trillion for bridges and roads? Have you seen any new bridges going up? Have you seen any bridges getting renovated? I live next to a huge bridge. That thing isn't getting fixed. $1 trillion? You could fix all the bridges. But it didn't go to that. It's a slush fund so they can bribe people. Think about all the stupid, whacked out, crazy leftists that Biden and whoever's really in charge, I'm thinking Obama behind the scenes, is installing all over the federal government. Think about all the stupid judges, left-wing judges that they're putting in. Have you seen some of the interviews with these clowns in the Senate? These are some of the dumbest people. And they want them to be on the federal courts. That's where they select people from for the Supreme Court. And they're on for life. You never get rid of these people. And installing all these people across the federal bureaucracy, these people are radical leftists. We don't want them. See, this is one of the things where voting for your party does matter. The parties are different. There is a lot of overlap with the whole uniparty BS and all that. But there are ideological differences where you put conservative type people in these places. It's better than having some whacked out pink-haired dude stealing luggage or whatever that freak was doing. So there is a difference between the parties. So voting for your party does matter. And Trump is a Republican. Trump is much less likely to start a war than the Democrats are. Because the Democrats are still controlled by the neocons or all that profits from war. They like war, I guess. We have found this out. Waltz attacked Trump for not attacking Iran. He said, yeah, they shot one of our aircraft. It was a drone. Didn't have people in it. They shot one of our drones down, and Trump was going to shoot. They wanted him to bomb Iran because they want a war with Iran. And he said, how many people is this going to kill? And they said, like 100. And he's like, and they shot down a drone. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Right? That's a citizen in charge of the military. Not some warmonger like John Bolton. All these, and what's his name from South Carolina. These idiots who got us into Iraq, who've never seen a war they didn't like. They think war is our main tool for changing the world. These people are warmongers. And they don't care whose kids go over there to die. They don't care how many people over there get killed. The Cold War has been over for a long time, and they're still acting like it's the Cold War. It's completely ridiculous. So, yeah, they hate the fact that Trump won't start wars for them. Think about Libya. Now, I don't know all that went into that, but Libya wasn't bothering anyone. I don't think Libya was a hellhole. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't great because I don't think Gaddafi was that good of a guy. But there was no justification for throwing that guy out. And there's a speech from Gaddafi on YouTube that's been translated with AI into English at the UN. And he's saying we shouldn't have... It made perfect sense what he was saying. Yeah, and he was a dictator, and I don't know much about him. But he was saying, the little countries should have a say too, and the Security Council. Like, he wasn't ranting and raving about invading other countries or whatever. I don't know why they got rid of him. It's just the weirdest thing. And now it's been chaos there since, I guess, when Obama and Hillary and whoever was in charge of France back then decided to just topple the government of Libya and replace it with chaos, I guess. So that's what we get more of if you vote for Democrats, which you might not think that's true. Oh, they're the peace party. No, they're not. Not anymore. Not anymore. I think there's too much money in it. And if you think that sounds conspiratorial, go check out General Eisenhower. He didn't start any wars. He would never have sent our kids into Vietnam. Not that I'm saying Vietnam was a horrible thing, but it was probably a mistake. He ended the war in South Korea. He wasn't like, we're not going to cut and run and all this crap, like fake tough guy stuff. He knew what war was like. He didn't want to start any of them. He did do some brinksmanship, but that was the Cold War. It's different. We don't have a Cold War now. You could that's the problem. The Cold War, I think, was a noble thing to do, right? The threat of global communism was a problem. Soviet Union was a menace, and we had to stand up to it. The problem is, it gave them the mindset that the United States is supposed to be in charge of the world and that they could do no wrong. Because in the Cold War, if you did something wrong, it actually wasn't that wrong because it hurt the other guys, the bad guys in the long run. So you could do whatever you wanted and still justify it. That's not true now. But they have to have a boogeyman so that they can keep doing stuff like that. The bottom line is he doesn't make any money off of war, and that's why they hate him. look at the guy they put in charge of the health department. I don't know what that guy is, and he claims to be a woman. And when he went to Congress, they kept calling him she and all that. It's complete madness. This whole thing is insanity. It's a dude in a dress, a dude who fathered children. And now, because of transgender ideology and postmodernism, that religion, they all want us to adhere to it. That kind of craziness won't go on if Trump is in. The government won't be paying for transgender surgeries in the military. Those things right there is enough reason to vote for him. This is complete insanity. They will do their best to push this trans madness all across, everywhere they can. They're putting up their religious flags everywhere on our embassies, all over the place. It's a religion. It's a hysteria. And they want to push it on us. It's the same thing. It's no different than putting a cross up in your classroom. Or having a priest read a story to kids at a library. Now, they would freak out if you did that. Because, church and state. Well, you got your own little religion here called postmodernism, called trans ideology. It's a religion. Get out of here. You're not allowed to push it on us. Remember how Obama tried to force all public schools to let kids use whatever bathroom they wanted? And Trump got rid of that, and I guess Biden hasn't brought it back. These people haven't changed, though. They still want to do that. They just, it's like, I can't remember, there was a documentary about communists, and they keep pushing until they meet resistance, then they back off for a little while. And then they just go back to pushing again. They don't ever stop. So just give it a little while, and they'll keep pushing that issue again at some point. Remember during the debates in 2020, and Kamala argued with Biden that she would use executive orders to take guns? And he argued with her. Maybe she was just trying to come across as super liberal so she could win the primary. But why did she say that now and now say, I'm a gun owner? I love guns. Come on. If she had that, imagine there was a crisis. Look at all the stuff they did during COVID. Imagine if Trump gets put in jail or assassinated and some, super right-wing types go crazy and she will use that as an excuse to take everyone's guns. Because we're all the Confederates now. We're all crazy. Look what they did with January 6th. They tried that. White supremacy is the biggest threat. That's what Biden kept saying. What are you talking about? If you don't think she would use that, I think that's pretty naive. These people will use anything they can because they're radicals. They're revolutionaries. They don't want to reform the system. They're revolutionaries. Look what they're doing. So, I don't know why you would believe every crazy thing Trump says, but never believe any crazy thing Kamala says. So, if Trump says something crazy and people like me say, oh, come on, he's just running his mouth, he's an idiot sometimes. But then when Kamala, and you don't believe that, no, he's actually a dictator or whatever. But then when Kamala says something crazy, you write it off. Oh, well, she's not going to do that. Well, she hasn't been in power as president for 4 years. Trump was actually in power for 4 years and didn't do anything really that crazy. Oh, January 6th. Come on. Stop. Everything can't be answered with January 6th, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. Do you think that we'll be safer with Trump or with her? Were we safe when Trump was in before? Yeah, we were. Do you think the economy and workers will be better off with Trump or with her? The economy, I guess, is fine. And, the people argue all the different stats, and who knows? Every time a unemployment number comes out, they parse it this way and that way. Well, those are part-time jobs, and those are their second job, and who knows? I don't know. I do know that wages were going up under Trump. He wasn't letting in a bunch of illegal immigrants to work for nothing. And the stats showed that the economy was doing really well. He was going to cruise to win again in 2020 until they, let out COVID and did all the riots and did a number on him. The economy was really good. And you know how I know for sure it was really good? Is because George Stephanopoulos said the economy is really hot right now. And that was, 6 months before the election, before everything hit the fan, right? Or maybe that was, I don't remember when that was, but it was before COVID, because the economy was not hot during COVID. But if that guy admits that the economy's great when Trump's in office, then it was probably pretty awesome. I think, come on, do you really think the economy is not going to be better under Trump? Not that he's some wizard, but he's not going to try to raise prices on everything. Think about prices. Remember when diesel was $6 a gallon? I mean, depending on where you were. Remember when gas, okay. So inflation starts going crazy kind of right when Biden gets in. I think you can blame half of it on COVID and you can blame half of it on him. But remember right before Putin invaded Ukraine and he was running around like a chicken with his head cut off, hey, warning everybody, they're going to invade, like all excited about it, but like just for show, it felt like. I was like, this is really weird. And then that night, the night they invaded, he said, this is the Putin price hike. So they knew they were going to try to blame inflation on Putin. This is how sick these people are. They're willing to take a war so they can blame their problems on it. And inflation was going up before Putin invaded Ukraine. Biden. Remember when Biden said, inflation is at zero. because it didn't go up during one of the months. What an idiot. His people who wrote that for him are complete morons. So we're going 60 miles an hour, then 70 miles an hour, then 80 miles an hour. We're accelerating. And then we're going 100 miles an hour. And we stop accelerating, but we're still going 100 miles an hour. And now we're going 0 miles an hour. That's basically what he's saying. I couldn't believe it. It's such a moron. Do you really think that Kamala will make energy cheaper? The Democrats don't want energy to be cheaper. They want it higher, so we're forced onto EVs and solar panels and windmills, which cannot power the United States. They will not work. This is all a stupid pipe dream. But they don't care. They don't care about us. You need to understand, they don't care what happens to us. They care more about the earth and their elite buddies and what they think of them and their goals than us. You might not believe that, but I think it's true. And as crass and as stupid and as much of a jackass as Trump is, I think he actually cares about what happens to us. And I don't think they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be pushing a war with Iran. But if they had their way, they would make gas $10 a gallon and force us all to get EVs and completely change how we live our lives to save the planet, right? All that stupidity. They're radicals, and that's what they want. And they would push it if they could. Do you think the neocons are more likely to start a major war with him in office or with her in office? I think with her in office. Now, he might, because he's a Israel guy, who knows? He might start a war with Iran to prevent them from getting a nuke. And maybe that's a good idea. I don't know. But do you really think the way things are now, stopping Iran from getting a nuke is worth World War III? I mean, maybe they would start World War III if they got a nuke anyway, because they'd nuke Israel. But there's smart people who think Iran doesn't want to go to war with Israel. It's just rhetoric. They're just idiots running their mouths. I don't know. And again, I shouldn't go into this. I just always think, why do the Israelis? It's not worth it. Just move to Nebraska. If you like the desert so much, move to Nevada. You guys could own Nevada. There's not that many even people in Nevada. If you had a bunch of Jews move over there and set up some utopia thing like they've created in Israel, it'd be awesome. And then they could control the whole state politics. It'd be like the Jewish state in the United States. I guarantee you it'd be a safer environment than over there. I don't know. And I don't think it's worth fighting so the Jews can have their homeland. Who cares? Who cares about that? That's not worth anyone's life for the Jews to have their homeland. Who cares? Who is more likely to spend money like crazy? You know, this one is kind of debatable. I'll admit. It used to be, but you know, I was going to say it used to be the Republicans, but they spend so much money on the defense because that's where all their donors are from, right? They're corrupt too, and then they talk a good game. We got to cut this and cut that. Yeah, but are you going to cut the military? Oh no, we'll never do that. That's our sacred cow. But we'll cut food stamps. Screw them. They're all lazy idiots anyway. But our donors in the military-industrial complex, we need them. We need to spend $10 million on every missile that they could probably charge us, let's be honest, 10% of that and still make a profit. But they're screwing us, right? But I do think it's more likely that they will spend us into oblivion than Trump will. He has more restraint, and his party has more restraint than they do. They don't care, I guess, about the debt. They're going crazy with it. And that's going to, you talk about talking to kids in 25 years, they're really going to wonder, how come you guys ruined the country by running up the debt so high and then destroying our credit rating, defaulting on the debt and cutting all the benefits and losing the U.S., the dollar as the reserve currency? Why did you guys do that? Why did you let that happen? Now we live in a hellhole. Well, because this guy did mean tweets and he cheated on his wife and he said crass stuff and I don't think they're going to think that's a good argument. They're going to say, who cares about all that? You voted for somebody who ruined the country and ran it into the ground. So you don't have to be embarrassed around your liberal friends. Just lie to them. Who cares about them? It's a secret ballot. You can lie about who you voted for. You can go to your parties. Oh, yeah, Trump's such an idiot. And then actually vote for him. Because he's going to help your grandkids not live in a hellhole. We'll get more Supreme Court justices like Clarence Thomas and Alito. That's a huge deal. When you talk to those kids in 25 years, whoever they put on the court will probably still be there. And they will have made so many decisions that shape the law, some big and some small. but over 25 years, the Supreme Court does a lot. Think about that. It's one of the most consequential things a president does. Look at what RFK is going to do with the regulatory agencies. He's going to overhaul them, and we'll finally get to the bottom of all this stuff. All the dyes in our food, all the chemicals, high fructose corn syrup, whatever's up with that, the whole autism thing, the vaccines, all this crazy stuff. We're just like all the spending in the military, all the corruption in all the other parts of the federal government. He's going to clean house at the FDA and all those other places that are supposed to be protecting us, and they're just bought and paid for by the agencies they're supposed to be regulating. It's completely insane. And unless they assassinate him, he's going to get to the bottom of it. If you care about that, vote Trump. If you want them to just keep doing what they've been doing, screwing us all, think about that stat. If you haven't seen RFK's thing, him talking on podcasts, I think he said it used to be 1 in 10,000 was autistic. Now it's 1 in 34. Something happened. He claims it started in the 80s, and it coincides with when they started jamming the kids with all these like 50 vaccines. I don't know, but the regulatory agencies are never going to tell us until somebody gets to the bottom of it. And RFK finally saw the light and teamed up with Trump, and Trump's giving him the go-ahead. That's a huge deal, and that's a huge reason to vote for Trump. Look what Trump is doing with manufacturing. The other side doesn't care about this. And to be honest, half of our side doesn't care about this. Free trade and all that, they couldn't care less about regular people. They don't care what happens to us, the rhinos. They don't care that all the manufacturing jobs went to China and Mexico. And then all the jobs that were left, they brought people in to work for peanuts. They brought in desperate people. So they sent all the manufacturing away, and they brought in desperate people to replace the jobs that you can't send away. They really did a number on the middle class. And we all just kind of watched them do it and looked at all the cheap stuff in Walmart, said, oh, look how wonderful this is, and looked at the stock market going up and turned a blind eye to all the slave labor in China and all the people in the middle of the country now who are on fentanyl and their families are screwed and they're not getting married. It's all connected, guys. If you want more of that crap, then vote for the Democrats. If you want Trump to try to resurrect as much as he can the manufacturing base, then you got to vote Trump. He negotiated this really good trade deal with Canada and Mexico. It replaced NAFTA, and everyone agrees it's really good. So he would do stuff like that again. The Democrats are never going to do that. Rhino Republicans are never going to do that. Wall Street, who buys them, doesn't want that because they're making a killing off of China. Yeah, slave labor and almost slave labor is really profitable. Ask the people in the South before the Civil War. They were making a killing off of slave labor. You don't think the Chinese are making a killing off of it? And the scum on Wall Street who doesn't have any morals, but hey man, they're making a ton of money sending all our jobs over there. Trump negotiated a deal that the Democrats would never have negotiated, even though they run around talking about how they're union people. The union people are, I think, finally waking up to this. But, I mean, I used to be against unions. All Republicans were at some point. Because all we do is focus on the fact that there's some corruption in unions instead of the purpose of unions. Like we throw the baby out with the bathwater. Think about all this complete nonsense about him being a threat to democracy. He was already in power for 4 years. You know what Hitler did after he'd been in power for 4 years? Yeah, he stayed in power. He threw all of his opponents in concentration camps. He did that the first month he was in power. He started throwing people in concentration camps. There are no comparisons to Hitler at all. This is so stupid. If you believe any of this, go learn about Hitler. Go look at a timeline. I actually have a podcast about it. Go look into it. The comparisons are stupid. And why wouldn't he have been a dictator the first time, but he's going to be a dictator this time? I guess because so he can get some revenge, whatever. Okay. But why wouldn't he have done it the first time? And why would he have left office? If he's such a tyrant, he would have tried to stay in office. Oh, January 6th. Oh, come on. They blew that out of proportion. Look, we don't need to get into this too far, but there were 2 what they call Stop the Steal rallies a couple weeks before January 6th. They had people all over D.C. at pretty big rallies. Stop the Steal. This was the 3rd Stop the Steal rally. That's all it was. And Trump came. They had already had 2 of them. So anyway, they really milked January 6th for all that they could. Is World War III worth? No, is it worth? What if Trump prevents World War III? Is that worth voting for him? Because the Democrats just keep pushing the Russians. They just keep pushing them. And they mistake, it's so stupid. Go watch Colonel McGregor. He's been right since the beginning. And the other guy, I can't remember his name. He's a little more kind of at this point like anti-United States. I think he's a little naive on the whole communist thing. What is his name? The other guy, Mersheimer. He's good on this too. But you only see him on YouTube. You'll never see him on CNN and MSNBC, all those idiots. NBC. Just stop watching those places. They're full. It's just complete propaganda. It's complete propaganda. Stop watching them. You're being brainwashed. You're not being told like real information. Putin doesn't want this war anymore. He's gotten what he wanted out of it. He didn't want it in the first place. But once he got into it, he's like, I guess I'll take this eastern part of Ukraine that wants to be part of Russia anyway because they're all Russians. And so he took it. And he would make a deal. He told them a couple months ago, if the Ukrainian army pulls back, we will stop immediately. And yeah, we'll sit on the land we've taken, but we won't take any more and it'll be over. The Democrats don't want that. They have an agenda. I guess they want to break up Russia. And so they just keep pushing. And he's slowing down or showing restraint, and they just see it as weakness. They're such idiots. Right? And the Colonel McGregor guy said at the very beginning of this, he said, they're going to fight to the last Ukrainian. They don't care about the Ukrainians. And apparently they don't. And people are starting to say now they're going to use the Filipinos to fight over Taiwan and get them to fight over Taiwan and bleed the Philippines dry. They have 80 million people. It's just these people are sick. They're warmongers. They don't care about us. They don't care about anyone else. They see it like a board game. And Trump doesn't see it that way. You have to just go watch Colonel McGregor. And I can't remember the other guy's name. Dang it. His last name is Sachs. I can't remember. Professor Sachs. And he's been, all over the place He helped end the Cold War. He helped create the economies after the Cold War. So he's not like a communist. I just think sometimes he's a little naive on like China and stuff. But he's a lefty, so what do you want? But remember how do you remember how they brainwashed us all into the Iraq War? We were so brainwashed. Just like the first, 2 weeks of the Ukraine war, after we started to see, dude, what is this? We're not buying the propaganda anymore, right? I was so brainwashed on the Iraq war. I feel embarrassed about it. But we need to be skeptical of what's going on and learn from our mistakes. The neocons and the Democrats, I don't think they're that worried about World War III because they just keep pushing. And so they've turned NATO into a tool of empire. Instead of preventing a communist takeover of Europe, now they're using it to push NATO into other countries against their neighbors' will. And people will say, well, it's a defensive alliance. Well, if it's used to start wars, then it's not a defensive alliance. There's this thing called the Delian League that the Greeks set up with Athens at the head of it. I don't know all about it, but eventually it turned into an empire, and the Athenians ran it, and they used it to push everyone else around. That's pretty much what we're doing with NATO now. And it's not working because we're driving the big powers in Asia together. We shouldn't be doing that. Russia should be on our team against the Chinese, and we've alienated them, and they don't want to be with the Chinese. The Chinese threaten them more than we do. And Russia's more like us than they are like China. Putin wanted to be part of NATO 20 years ago. Think about that. Now, maybe he was lying or whatever, but once he was in NATO, he would be in our orbit. And they would have to meet certain benchmarks of like democracies and stuff. So, our elites have just so screwed this up. So look what they're doing. They're moving us toward a war with Iran in the Middle East. I don't know what they're doing, but they don't seem to care that Israel is provoking a war. None of our kids should be over there fighting this stupid blood feud that they have over there. Tell the Israelis, okay, you retaliated for October 7th, secure your borders, don't go to war with everyone, and calm down and try to make a deal with Saudi Arabia like you were going to do before you blew up Gaza because they did a terrorist attack on you. I get it. But these people, do you really think John Bolton won't rejoice when a war breaks out between Israel and Iran? These people are warmongers. And these things get out of hand. But they think it's the Cold War. Look, Trump's main fault is that he's a jerk. Or that he comes across as a jerk. And let's be honest, he is, right? He runs his mouth. He says stupid stuff. He has done some shady stuff, that's true. But I don't know how much shady stuff he did while president. Let's be honest. What did he really do? Now, don't tell me what he said. Right? This is what Bill Maher falls into. He said. Okay, what did he do, Bill? And they have nothing. They got nothing. Focus on what he did. We have these emotional knee-jerk reactions. Okay, I get it. I was there before he got the nomination in 2016. But once he got the nomination, what was my real alternative? The Libertarian Party is not an alternative. The Green Party is not an alternative. Not voting is not an alternative. Voting for the Constitution Party is not an alternative. It might make you feel good, but it's not a real alternative. You might wish it was an alternative, but it's not. So you have Kamala or you have Trump. You don't even have RFK anymore. So just stop it with the third party crap. You have two choices. And think about it. If you separate how he acts from his demeanor, you would actually like what he does. You'd think he was awesome like I do. If you know Rush Limbaugh, maybe you don't like Rush Limbaugh, I don't know. Real conservatives love Rush Limbaugh. He wasn't right on everything, but he was right on most things. And he was awesome. He loved Trump. He loved Trump. And I guarantee you he would still be in favor of Trump today. He knew Trump was a bombastic jerk. And Rush kind of was too, but he was so much more articulate than Trump. I don't think Trump is dumb, but man, he sounds dumb. I get it. So I get it. Why the rhinos and what we call suburban women just can't stand him. But who cares what he comes across as? What will he do? And everything he'll do, you like. And everything Kamala will do, you don't like. Stop focusing on how they come across. Stop approaching it emotionally and with your gut, and approach it rationally. He's not Hitler. He won't do crazy stuff. He was already in office once. So all that stuff, oh, you don't know what he's going to do. We know exactly what he's going to do. He was already in office once. He's not going to destroy democracy. Come on. That's just BS politics. And they keep saying it even though he got shot. You know it's just politics. Come on. You were there when he was in office before, and I know they riled you up and tried to get you to think, oh, he's crazy. Everything's crazy. It's the end of the world. It wasn't the end of the world. The country was fine. They weren't fine because they lost their minds when Trump got elected. Kind of like I lost and we lost our minds when Obama was in. I can't stand Obama. He drives me crazy. But mainly because he acts like something that he's not. He acts like this rational, sophisticated moderate. And he's just a hardcore leftist communist. He's a radical Bolshevik. He wants revolution. And he doesn't care about the rules. He doesn't care about the Constitution. At least all of it he doesn't care about. He doesn't really like the United States. He likes what it could be if he could turn it into what he wants it to be, like all revolutionaries. He's a radical. And what drove me crazy most about him is what he did. And it's true. Sometimes I would oppose him just because I hated him so much. Just sick of him. I get it. But people on the right, if Obama was my guy, I would love Obama. Because he did everything I wanted. So it's weird because people on our side, Trump does what rhinos and suburban women want, but they hate him because of how he acts. It makes no sense. We all know he's better than Kamala. He'll govern better than Kamala. He won't put communists into the bureaucracies and crazy people dressed up as women in the bureaucracies or into the White House. He won't start stupid wars because he doesn't benefit from war like they do because that's where their donors are from. He's not trying to build an empire. He knows that the Cold War is over. He doesn't need the United States to be the hegemon over every single country, which is crazy. He'll put in good justices. He's not a globalist or an elitist. He's elite, but the elites hate him. He's like Teddy Roosevelt, kind of, in that way. You know, and people like Michael Medved, oh, you can't compare him to Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was a righteous man. You're right. Trump's kind of a sleazeball. But I bet you Teddy Roosevelt would like Trump. And I bet you Teddy Roosevelt would vote for him. Because Teddy Roosevelt was a patriot, and so is Trump. I guarantee you Theodore Roosevelt would be for America first, too. Look, think about it. The fact that all the elites hate Trump, that's a good thing. That means something, because all the elites, they're in it for themselves. Not all of them, but a lot of them. He knows how to lead large organizations. And these people who say, well, you could have put your money in the S&P 500 and made more money than Trump did with his businesses. Well, what's in the S&P 500? Yeah, businesses. Businesses that employ people. So if everyone put their money in the S&P 500, would everyone get rich? No, because somebody has to put their money into businesses. It's a pretty dumb argument, right? Yeah, he was running businesses that own assets and pay people and provide services. Anyway, it's a dumb argument, I think. Kamala doesn't know how to run anything. People hate her. The people who work for her hate her. And you can see why. She's probably a huge you-know-what behind the scenes. So, and here's the most important thing. All that other stuff aside, she doesn't agree with your values. She won't do what you want. You can throw all that other stuff aside, just like I do with Trump. Trump's a jerk. He's kind of an idiot. I don't really know how smart he is, but he does what I want, and he agrees with me on most issues. So I vote for him. If Kamala did what I wanted and agreed with me on most issues, I could overlook the cackle. I could overlook that she's a jerk. I could overlook that all this other stuff. She's a fraud and a dummy. But I care about what they're going to do, not how they act. Look, if you're a moderate, you can't vote for Kamala just because you don't like Trump's style. How can you claim to be like a thinking person if the whole reason you vote for someone is because of how they act or how they come across on TV during a 90-minute debate? You're not informed if that's all you care about. Look at what they do or what they will do. You have to put your emotions aside on this. He's a patriot. He's rough around the edges, but he actually wants to help the country. And Kamala, she won't help the country. She will make it worse, just like she and Biden have been doing. Look, you can still tell everyone how much you hate him. You can still say he's a racist. He's such a moron. Fine. But you can vote for him in secret. Because when we're all dead, that will have been the right decision. Thank you for listening.